Hello. So in honor of Pride Month, I'm doing a super casual video. The video quality itself is not going to be great because I'm using my web camera, so I apologize in advance. But this is going to be a super casual video. I have made a tier list of all the biggest examples, in my opinion, of queer baiting. I've also done some research, added ones that I know are like a really big deal. I just might not be as familiar with. Technically, this is kind of a negative video for Pride Month because it's about being baited, and there was no queer romance at all. So I will be doing another video where I rank canonically queer ships because as much as this entertains me, it also makes me a little sad. So I'm going to share real quick my little tiers. I have 5 of them. The lowest is rainbow tinted glasses. This is ones that I respectfully don't see. I don't consider them to be queer baiting. Perhaps I see them more as queer coding or subtext, or couples that I just think are together. So then it's not queer baiting. You might see some of those examples. So again, that one might be a contentious one. Queer baiting is very personal to everybody. So you can feel free to argue respectfully in the comments. If you're queer, if you're straight, I don't want to see any comments about this isn't queer baiting. Queer baiting is very specifically manipulated towards queer people. So it's Pride Month. I don't want to hear it. So that's the lowest tier. The next one is I'm sorry to this man. These are ones, look, I tried to do my research of the ones that I'm not as familiar with, and some I feel like I have a really good idea and I can categorize them properly, at least in my own perspective. But some of them I don't have enough information, or it's too contentious. Like there's just too many like differing perspectives, and I'm like unsure if it's queer baiting. So I'm gonna have to put it there, unfortunately. The next 3 are ones that I do think are all queer baiting. I just think for me that they're different levels. Slap on the wrist is what I would call, you might have seen in my previous video, like queer baiting light. Obviously, all queer baiting is bad. These are ones that I see more, maybe just in the marketing, maybe like some promotional material, maybe like one episode. Still not great. Again, feel free to argue if you think there's more evidence than I'm seeing, but those are what I would put in slap on the wrist. The next is jail, no parole. These are ones that are pretty bad. It might be a character arc that goes on for a few episodes, even a season. You know, joking about them being queer, joking about them getting together. I think this applies to one specific couple, but we'll get there. And then, of course, there is straight to Turbo Hell. If you know, you know, for Turbo Hell. I think if you're here, you probably know what Turbo Hell is. These are the worst of the worst. I'm going to try not to put too many in this one because I feel like it has to be reserved for the ones that make me the most upset or I know are just catastrophically diabolical queerbaiting. So again, queerbaiting is really personal to everybody. So I know that. I would genuinely love to hear your opinions. Again, if you think there's one that I don't think is queerbaiting that you think is, I truly want to hear. If you're gay, it's Pride Month. Straight, I don't want to, respectfully, I don't want to hear your opinion about queerbaiting unless you have like some genuine questions, and then go off. Okay, we're just gonna start. The first one you're gonna see real quick that I enjoy anime. Is Armin and Eren from Attack on Titan. Hate to start off so weak, but I think that this to me is a pretty clear rainbow tinted glasses. This is an example to me of queer coding. Unless there's something in the ether that I'm unaware of, I don't think that this was intended by the author. I think it's more of subtext. It's kind of like Frodo and Sam in Lord of the Rings. Like, do I think J.R.R. Tolkien meant for them to be gay? Probably not. Do they seem really gay? Yes, that's this to me. Like the childhood to lovers, I get it. I think the fan fiction would be fantastic. I'm shocked I haven't gone there because I love some fan fiction. Did I ever think that they were gonna go in that direction? No. Do I like the people they ended up with? No. Both can be true. But yes, I would say it's more subtext than anything. The next one is one I'm actually kind of new to, and that is Buck and Eddie, or Buddy from 911, which is a procedural drama. I had heard about this one for a while, and for whatever reason, and this is like, it's my bad, it's real hypocritical of me, I did not treat it seriously. I was like, I don't think it's queer baiting. It's people probably just wanting to pair them together. Then I watched a couple of YouTube videos of people defending the fact that it's queer baiting and talking about the evidence in the show. I will link them down below. My bad, guys. My bad. Straight to turbo hell. Diabolical. I don't want to get into it too much because, again, this isn't a buddy specific video, but they like essentially have a kid together. They essentially have a kid together. The first time that Buck sees Eddie, What a Man starts playing. That's all I'll say. Now I will say Buck, this one right here, is canonically bisexual. He is canonically bisexual. So there is something. I don't think a lot of people are a fan of his boyfriend, but it's there. So we have that. Next is, I believe, Buffy and Faith. Correct me if I'm wrong, from Buffy Vampire Slayer. Tragically, somehow I've never watched Buffy Vampire Slayer. Shocking to me because I love spooky vibes. I love Halloween. It's a show I've been meaning to get to for so long, and I haven't. This is one I had to do research on. You can see where I put it. I did that so prematurely. I apologize. It was instinct. I just feel like I didn't get enough research on this one. I get that I just put Buck and Eddie up here and I've never seen 911, but I've seen the evidence. I've seen the video footage. This one, from what I've done my research on, and by research, I mean like going on like Tumblr and Reddit, it seems very divided in terms of like whether it's just kind of more like vibes versus like legitimate queer baiting. I believe Buffy also does have like canonical like sapphic women. If they were handled well, who knows? Because it's Joss Whedon, you know. But I mean, I'm loving what I'm seeing here. Loving what I'm seeing here. But I would say I just don't have enough information, unfortunately. So, ooh boy. If you've seen my queer baiting video, I reserved like 25 minutes to Byler specifically. It is it will haunt me forever. It will haunt me forever. Obviously, I'm sorry. I'm biased. It has to go here. This is my number one. Should I be embarrassed that this queer baited me in my late 20s? Probably. But in my defense, it was just so frequent in the show. It was in the marketing. They constantly pair these two together. Also, Mike Wheeler is a homosexual. Look me in the eyes. Mike Wheeler is a homosexual. He's a closeted man. He doesn't like women at all. Also, 11 just needs to be independent and they shouldn't have killed her, but that's besides the fact. I'm sorry, this video is a mess. Yeah, the entire season 4, like their arc was dedicated to Will liking Mike. So if he wasn't ever going to get Mike, why did they wait until the last episode for him to not get a love interest, unlike every main character, side character, extra in that show? Riddle me this. This is an example where I feel like they did go back. I think it was going to become a thing, and then they became cowards. That's my hypothesis. If you want to hear more, because I'm gonna lose my mind in a second, and I'm gonna like black out and start talking about them again. Just go watch my queer baiting video. Diabolical. That's all I'll say. Duffer Brothers, Sean Levy, I'm coming for you. Next, Bucky and Captain America. We got a Buck and a Bucky. Shouldn't have filmed this so late. Anyways, this is an interesting one to me. I think ones that are like Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, anything like that, there is one exception, which you'll see. I just never anticipate them to actually make them queer. Not the main characters. They love to have little side characters, or like LeFou from Beauty and the Beast. Strange World is the one exception where they did have like a queer lead and he had a boyfriend, which is lovely. I just think I never anticipated that like Bucky and Captain America were going to get together. Did they have vibes? Yes. I think, the actors and the production team leaned into it a little bit, and there were moments, particularly in Civil War. So I will say it's a very light slap on the wrist. It's more of like a little kiss on the wrist. I just feel like it's mostly like they have a really interesting dynamic. I think it would be great for like fan fiction. But I unfortunately think that was never the direction that they were planning to go in. Argue with me if you would like. I would love to hear what you would think. The next one, okay, so I have 2 solo people in this tier where I think it's more queer baiting of an individual's identity versus like a couple. And the first one is, of course, Chandler Bing. If you've seen Friends, you know what I'm talking about. They love to hint at the fact or tease the fact that he is bisexual. I wouldn't say it's always teased in the most loving way. I think it's kind of putting him down a little bit, unfortunately. But I feel like it's kind of just canonical at this point that he's like bisexual. Unfortunately, they didn't go through with it. I guess they thought two lesbians was enough in the 90s. Love Carol and Susan. I would say this is... I would say it's a slap on the wrist. I think there was never any point. I think it would have been really amazing to have a bisexual lead on like a cable show in the 90s, but unfortunately I think it was always kind of going to be a little joke, which is not nice, but it's a sad truth. So I would say slap on the wrist, Chandler Bing, I love you very much. Next is Chloe and Becca from Pitch Perfect. Listen, I've not watched Pitch Perfect 3. I've heard that's the one that maybe commits the most gay sins. There's vibes. I mean, listen, in the first movie, they shower together. Chloe hops in the shower with Becca to get her to audition for her a cappella group. So I've also heard in the sequels that they do make kind of jokes that they hooked up at one point. I gotta say that's kind of jail no parole. I also just think they could have done it in a movie about like a cappella. Do you think your audience is going to complain about two lesbians? No. Most of them were probably in a glee club. So yeah, I think it's a real pity, and none of their love interests when they had them were ever that compelling. So next is JJ and Emily, I believe, from Criminal Minds. I was a big Criminal Minds girly in college, and then I realized that I was consuming way too much true crime, and my brain was breaking a little bit, and I was just paranoid all the time. So I'm not caught up in the later seasons. So maybe the later seasons, there's like 5 billion seasons at this point, are gayer. I'm gonna have to say, unfortunately, I think this is even less than Aaron and Armin. I don't see it happening. I think Emily kind of gave vibes of being queer in some way. JJ always just came across as really straight to me. I fear. Maybe things changed in the later seasons. Maybe that there's a lot more compelling evidence. Do share if you have something. But I don't know. I feel like I see gay everywhere, and I never thought about those two. Tragically. Moving to a very different ship is Dean and Castiel, aka Destiel. I watched like the first. I always said that I was in Super Lock, which is like the combined fandom for some reason on Tumblr of Supernatural, Sherlock, and Doctor Who. Oh my gosh. And I just didn't really watch Supernatural. I think I watched the first 2 seasons, but I know a lot of information, mostly because of Sarah Zed videos and Tumblr and whatever happened on November 5th. Basically, Castiel, this little fella over here, said he loved Dean. Now, it could have been platonic, but I think they knew what the audience was going to interpret that as, and then he went to hell, aka bury your gays. Obviously, this has to go to Turbo Hell. Turbo Hell originates from Destiel. I would say, I'm sorry, again, I can't put anything about Byler. I can't even look at them right now. But it's bad. It's bad. It's such a sad ending. I would almost then rather not do anything at all than like kind of sort of go there. You know, I think it's just really disappointing. So, but it makes me laugh a little bit. It does, because it's just such a bad finale. It's a really bad last couple of episodes. Moving on, we have our last individual, and that's Elsa. I think Elsa comes more from a place that people want Elsa to be a lesbian because she doesn't seem to show a lot of romantic interest. I definitely can see that. Do I think Disney's ever going to go in that direction? No. There was a girl she kind of got along with in Frozen 2. I think that was maybe Disney kind of, giving people something. But obviously I don't think she's ever going to get with anybody. I mean, there's a Frozen 3, so maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I gotta say, like, maybe, like, here, I get the vibes. She gives lesbian vibes. I just don't trust Disney to do anything with it. And I don't think that they've even really teased it much, to be honest. So, here is Finn and Poe from Star Wars, the Star Wars sequels, to be more specific. This is my one exception that I was talking about when I was discussing Captain America and Bucky. I think they baited the hell out of Finn and Poe. Not to mention the fact that both of them, more so Oscar Isaac, who plays Poe, wanted them to get together. Unfortunately, both their characters just kind of ended in fiery flames. Poe was hinted to kind of be in love, or had been in love, with a spice trader out of nowhere, and then Finn got nothing. He didn't even get the Force. I love so much of the sequels, but there are things that just grind my gears. But they look at them. Look at those two loving boys. This is obviously jail, no parole. I think I can't put it in straight to turbo hell because again, there were red flags that this was never going to happen. It's Disney again. I'll believe it when I see it with them. You know, I think this is worse than Becca and Chloe. It's look at them. It's so sad. Continuing on to Super Hulock again. The Locke of Super Hulock is John Locke. This is John Watson and Sherlock Holmes. This is one where, technically speaking, there's not like a variety in the evidence. It's mostly the fact that they really like to joke about them being gay. Everyone assumes they're gay. People think that they should be together. I will say, I think the show gives a little bit more vibes that like Sherlock is gay, or maybe in the community like asexual or aromantic. I can kind of see it in both directions. Watson is just so firm that he's straight. It almost gives me the ick, to be honest. And then he's with Mary for most of it. But it was queer baiting. The crew was, you know, the directors and writers were not kind about it. It didn't seem like they liked their fans all that much. But they definitely baited it. Fun fact also, if you know anything about Conformity Gate from Stranger Things, it all began here with the John Locke conspiracy, where they also thought there was going to be another episode because the finale was so bad. Honestly, the whole season was really bad. Controversially, I am not going to put it in straight to turbo hell because I do think that they were so cruel about it. There were some pretty bad red flags, but I have to put it at the top of jail, no parole, because you could argue me up to turbo hell. I just think they were so malicious about it that it always seemed a little, you know, unsure if they would do that. And here we have what some may call the mothership of queerbaiting, Clance, from Voltron. It is a show that I've not watched. Did some research on it for my queerbaiting video. Again, this is one similar to Buck and Eddie from 911, where there's a plethora of evidence that this was queerbaiting. They were in the marketing all the time. They were paired up in the marketing. At one point, they did a little like encouraging, like they drew a photo, like some of the animators in support of their LGBTQ fans when Trump first got elected. And they had one of them hold up an LGBTQ sign, Lance, I believe. So, you know, they also like did double homicide because I guess there's a character named Shiro who is gay, and they're like, oh, we're gonna give him a boyfriend, and then that boyfriend died immediately. So like, you know, bury your gays. And then like I think Keith or Lance, one of them ended up with someone that just didn't really make sense characteristically. So it's bad. It's also kind of some may consider like the original queerbaiting, at least in like the 2000s and 2010s. So I do have to put it in straight to turbo hell. I will put it here because I just don't know as much about it. Next, back to anime, is Kurapika and Liario. They are from Hunter x Hunter. This one's an interesting one because there are two animated adaptations of the manga, one from the 90s and one from like the 2010s, I believe. I've only seen the 2010s one. That is the more popular one. According to my brother, in the 90s, they're actually pretty gay. They're actually pretty gay. I can't speak on it, but I trust my brother. They definitely give vibes in the 2010s, but I think it's more like coding and subtext, and they just seem like a really dynamic pairing that again would work really well for fan fiction. I don't know if the creator was ever like leaning towards it. Also, like I think, and I can't speak on Japanese culture obviously, but I know it's a little bit more difficult to get queer characters in the mainstream, you know, with anime and everything. So I'm gonna have to say I think it's just more people like their dynamic. I don't think they're baiting anybody with it. I think like at all. I will put it there. Next is Luca and Alberto from Luca. If you were on TikTok in like 2021, 2022, you know what I'm talking about. This whole movie is just really gay. It's a really complicated one because it's clear the production team knows it's gay and kind of supports it. The director definitely made a weird comment where he was like, oh, we thought about making them gay, but then we decided to focus on like their pre-romance friendship, which is like interesting wording. Also one of the storyboard leaders ended up releasing like their own personal fan art of like Luca and Alberto grown up and together and, you know, kissing and being cute. So they have the support for it. It's clearly a very, you know, overtly like it has a lot of like queer subtext about coming out and coming to terms with your identity as a kid and like first love and all that stuff. They say that's not what it's about, but like, you know, so I have a really soft spot for the movie. It means a lot to me as a queer individual. but it, they're not saying it's there. I don't know. I would say maybe this is too low. Maybe this is too kind. But I would say it's a slap on the wrist. I think the animators did as much as they could. I think Disney as an entity is just very powerful sometimes. I don't think that was ever going to slide. But I think that they infused it with a lot of gay energy. And I think if you're queer, I think check it out. I think you'll feel seen by it. I did. It makes me cry every time. So I will recommend. Next, speaking of Disney, is Mal and Evie. This is gonna be a really long video, much longer than I expected. I'm so sorry. Mal and Evie they're from a Disney Channel movie called Descendants. There's 3 official Descendants movies. I was a little too old for them. I think I saw the first one and then hints of them, like when I would like babysit some relatives. So I know the general gist, and I will say from what I've seen, they lean into it a little bit. Again, I wouldn't say it's any more than like a slap on the wrist. I think they would have been a great pairing. Again, from what I saw, they were always established with other guys. But again, it's not one I'm as familiar with, so feel free if you have like a different opinion, or again, there's more evidence that I'm just like not aware of. Here's another one. Here's a classic Tumblr queerbaiting example. Merthyr. This is Merlin and Arthur from BBC's Merlin. This is one, I think more than anything, I would love to hear your opinions on. I'm very conflicted. I never really saw it growing up, although I was a very repressed queer, so I didn't see a lot of stuff because I was not looking for gay. It's a tricky one for me because they're clearly trying to follow the myth pretty, line by line, where it's like, oh, like Gwen and Arthur get together, and then Gwen cheats on Arthur, but then, oh, it's just magic manipulation. She really loves him, So I think I always knew that they'd probably go in the Gwen and Arthur direction, and they do seem to genuinely love each other. But then Arthur also just seems to love Merlin. So it's maybe they just all have to be together. Maybe that's the answer. But also the more I watch it, the more I'm like, oh my God, every scene they have together is so romantic. And if it was a man or woman, people would think that it was meant to be, because queerbaiting, so much of it is just using romantic tropes that straight people are not going to pick up on. Because, God forbid it's a man and a man, or a woman and a woman. So I don't know. I mean, the production team is a lot more loving towards, I think, their fans than someone like Supernatural or Sherlock. And I think they acknowledge that it feels like a bit of a love story sometimes. I think even some of the actors have shown support. This is probably gonna be really contentious. I'll put it up really high. I do think it's more of a slap on the wrist. But again, I think more than any of these, I would love to hear your opinions. Next, I think we're back to Disney. Disney's always at the scene of the crime. Also, it's just because Disney owns everything. This is Regina and Emma from Once Upon a Time. I'm sure they have a ship name. I'm not aware what it is. I watched maybe the first half of Once Upon a Time, like religiously. I was obsessed with it. I personally never noticed anything with Regina and Emma, but again, wasn't looking for it at the time. I've tried to look up evidence, and unfortunately, I just feel like it's too contentious. Like, there's people that are like, oh, it's more subtext, and then others are hints. Again, there's always the argument whenever it's Disney or like a big company, it's like, oh, they were never going to go for it. But that doesn't mean you can't be queerbaited. I think it's still legitimate that they can put stuff in that might lead you to believe that they're going to end up. But unfortunately, I do have to say, I'm sorry to this man. I'm going to put it up a little higher because I see it a little bit, and I think they would have been a great duo. Like, they share the same son, so I think it would have made sense, but I never really saw it going there. And Emma, in particular, had a lot of different love interests. So the next one is Rachel and Quinn from Glee. What a throwback. This is one, again, where I feel like they definitely gave nods to it and, like, episodes here and there. Maybe this was more personal to a certain individual. I think because they were focusing so much on Rachel and Finn and then a little bit with Quinn and Puck, it just felt like it was more teases of it. And I think also they were focusing on the true lesbian couple, Santana and Brittany. I would say there's moments. So I would say it's a slap on the wrist. I would put it here. I've not watched Glee in years, so perhaps I blocked something out that was like super gay that they did. I also just don't really like them as a couple, controversially. I don't see it, unfortunately. The next one is one I definitely don't have any strong feelings for, and that is Ready, which is Richie and Eddie from It. This was originally a book by Stephen King which I refuse to read because it's like 1,000 pages long. Also for that scene. If you know, you know. But I have seen the miniseries with Tim Curry, and I adore the Muschietti movie adaptation of it. I think Richie and Eddie have always kind of been paired together. I know at least one of the actors in the miniseries played it gay. I believe Eddie. They're very queer coded in the book. And then in the Muschietti universe, they did decide to make Richie canonically gay in part 2, which was played by Bill Hader and Finn Wolfhard. They did it immaculately. It was really beautiful representation, especially for like a mainstream international release. There's a bunch of scenes kind of grappling with his identity and showing his struggles and coming to terms with it. Very beautiful. Highly recommend. Where some people think it's queer baiting is that like Richie and Eddie don't end up together. My strong opinion is that it's just not queer baiting at all. They only had a day where they were reunited, where they're like dealing with having to kill Pennywise and be separated from one another. And like Eddie's in a relationship with this abusive lady that looks like his mother, you know? I just don't think he was going to come to terms with that in one day. I think they insinuate that Eddie probably has feelings for Richie if given the chance. I just don't think there is that chance. Because spoilers, he dies. He dies in the book, he dies in the movies. It's not bury your gays, as some claim, because he was going to die anyways. I'd love to think that they end up together. That's why I read alternate universe fanfic. I've literally written like a 200,000 word ready fanfic. So, you know, I just think that it's unfortunate. It's tragic. I think that's the story, but I don't think it's queer baiting, unfortunately. So, I won't put it like, I mean, I'll put it high because again, I get wanting them to be together, but I think it's a little tricky. Next is Reki and Longa from Skate the Infinity anime. Another complex one, guys, because I think they're meant to be gay. I think just given how anime and Japanese culture can be sometimes with like LGBTQ, I think it was going to be difficult for them to be like professing their love and kissing and all that stuff. It certainly happens in anime, just it's not as common as I think many people would like. And I think it's hinted at very strongly as much as they can, where like Longa again insinuates that he has a crush on a boy, and they just have a lot of like, you know, long glances towards each other and like physical proximity and contact and all that stuff. I think it's clear that they are in love with each other. They just go as far as they can. But again, it's not confirmed or anything, so like I understand. So I will give it a slap on the wrist. Again, lightly. I'll put it like here, just because again, I think they are like kind of meant to be gay. It's just kind of subtle, if that makes sense. The next is Betty and Veronica from Riverdale. Again, a show that I started and then it just went off the rails. So I do know what happened. I think to the best of my ability, I still can't really comprehend it, but I know what happened. Betty and Veronica are kind of that example where it's like a one episode promotional material kind of thing. They used a kiss that they had in cheerleader auditions in season 1 and a lot of the commercials leading up to that season. And there is like an episode where they kiss to get into the cheerleading team. I don't know. It's definitely queer baiting, but again, it's kind of one and done. Not that makes it okay. But then it's very much about, for the most part, Betty and Jughead and Veronica and Archie. Now, of course, there is the elephant in the room that some of you may know, and that's the fact that in the last season, in the last episode, they're in this like 50s alternate universe. We don't have time to get into it. They are in a polycule, essentially. Richie? There's a new person. Veronica, Betty, Jughead, and Archie are all dating each other. They kind of like to make sure that you don't think that Richie and Jughead are kissing, God forbid, but essentially they're in a polycule. So I guess they're kind of gay at the end, but like also not really. I would say because they do kind of lean into the kiss a little bit, I would still call it queer baiting to an extent. I will put it here. The next is unfortunately one again that I'm just not really familiar with. I guess I don't do a lot of procedurals. This is Rizzoli and Isles, and the people that are deemed to potentially be queer baiting is Rizzoli and Isles. I admittedly don't know a ton about them, and again, unfortunately, and it's very embarrassing as a sapphic woman to see all the lesbians going into I'm sorry to this man. I think this just shows the lack of lesbians and the access to them. But again, unfortunately, it's just too contentious. It's either people think that they're just coded that way, and some people think it's queer baiting. So unfortunately, again, I really just have no idea. Next is Scorbus, which is, what a name. Uniquely from a play. Unfortunately, it is from Joanne Rowling. We love trans people here. where it is Scorpius and Albus. Scorpius is Draco's son and Albus is Harry's son. It is gay, I have to say. I remember when I read the play back in the old days when Harry Potter meant positivity and not what it is now, unfortunately. I was really disappointed. It was just like the use of a lot of romantic tropes where if they were a man and a woman, people would have been like on board. Again, a lot of like, you know, passionate arguments and, you know, close physical proximity and, you know, longing glances and all that. And just a lot of messages about them being outsiders. But then, of course, Scorpius at the last minute kind of has a crush on Rose, Hermione's daughter. I've heard a lot of the actors do lean into the gay energy that the play exudes, purposely or not. But I do think it is queer baiting. Joanne loves to do that, or just randomly add gay characters at the last minute. So, it's, I don't know. I've never actually like seen the play. It's a very complicated form of queer baiting. But I do think that the fact that they like lean into it for most of the play is pretty bad. So I'm gonna put it here. I think people might argue that this is above Merlin and Arthur, but we can talk in the comments. Yes. Also, don't support Joanne. Okay. Next, shockingly, I did not watch Teen Wolf. I was on Tumblr like every day of my high school life, and I did not watch Teen Wolf. But I know who these people are. It is Styles and Derek or Steric. From my research, it is pretty confirmed to be queer baiting. I think it's more of leaning into Styles being like bisexual. There's a lot of like moments of him having to pretend to be gay, or he like goes to like a gay club and has to pretend to be gay, you know, stuff like that. And then there are moments, again, romantic tropes, physical proximity. It seems pretty bad. Also, like I would have just loved to see a bisexual Dylan O'Brien character. It's bad. I would say I'm gonna put it here. I don't think I can put it above Sherlock. That seems like one step too far. But again, from my limited knowledge, the evidence is pretty overwhelming. The next one, pardon me, I'm gonna have to look up their names. I know it's Supergirl. It is Cara and Lena, or Cara and Lena. Apologies. Fun fact, this lady with the black hair right here played Morgana in Merlin. So she's just always around the queer baiting, it seems. Again, this is one that, like, having done the research, there definitely is evidence that they were queer baiting. There's a lot of like talk about like needing each other and really strong connections. I mean, like, look at the picture right there. Very intense, close physical proximity. I don't think I have enough information or experience. I've not watched anything from that universe at all, like Flash or whatever. So I can't say too much about it. I also just didn't see it as much on Tumblr. Like I saw Styles and Derek all the time. So I don't know if I can put it like too high, but I would say from the evidence that I've seen, I would feel confident enough to put it here. Next is Wednesday and Enid, or Enid. Again, apologies, I've not watched it, from Tim Burton show Wednesday, based off the Addams Family. This is one that I actually am more familiar with, even though I've not watched it, because it has been very controversial of like, is it queer baiting, is it not? Because they have pretty much stated that they're not going to get together. However, the actors for Wednesday and Enid have been very supportive of it. Also, there's just a lot of like the way that they frame their friendship. There's a lot of use of like lesbian and bisexual colors, which again is very purposeful. I would say, you know what, I'm going to put them by the other lesbians because I feel I just don't have enough information, but I can tell that there's definitely some queer baiting going on. So I'm going to put them there. 3 more guys. We're almost done. Wolfstar. I feel haunted right now. I was deep in the trenches of the Marauders fandom in the early 2020s. I think back to it very fondly, even though now it's kind of tinged by Joanne Blackmold Rowling. So Wolfstar, if you don't know, you probably do, even if you don't want to, because they're everywhere, is Sirius and Remus. There's a lot of pairings in the Marauders fandom that just don't make any technical sense because they're barely mentioned in the book. This one is one where even in the books that they're in, predominantly Prisoner of Azkaban, there is a lot of like subtext and queer coding. Also, the director of Prisoner of Azkaban did tell the actors of Sirius and Remus to play it gay, but Joanne Rowling, has stated that she did not intend them to be gay. But also, like, I don't care. I guess technically it is more coding, but the fact that like the director thought it was supposed to be gay is like a whole thing. So I do have to like, and also I just don't like J.K. Rowling. So I'm gonna give her a slap on the wrist. I can't put it too high. I will say like maybe it's like here. There you go. Next, again, apologies, I do have to look this one up. It is Xena and Gabrielle. This is from Xena Warrior from the 90s. Again, I did have to do research on this. I'm very intrigued by what I'm seeing. I think I would enjoy this show. Seems to be more coding and subtext, but I think there's enough where, especially when there was like, and still to this day, unfortunately, so few sapphic and or lesbian shows, that I can understand why what was shown there seems to be gay. And the clips that I've seen are pretty gay. So I'm putting so many on slap of the wrist, but believe me, anything that's slap on the wrist or above is not good. They should not be doing that. I'm gonna put it here just due to like, again, unfortunately lack of information. Also, if I'm like missing any couples that you feel like people should be more aware of as examples of queer baiting, also feel free to comment that down below. The last one is, of course, ranting on anime. It's Yuri on Ice, the gayest thing I think I've ever seen in my life. And the pairing is Victor and Yuri. This is one that I was seeing on a lot of lists for queer baiting, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure I understand why. Again, because of the world of anime and its complexities, its complex relationship to LGBTQ, I can understand, like, oh, you know, the hesitancy, but they're gay. Am I, like, being gaslit? They, like, Victor proposes to Yuri. He also, like, runs onto the ice and kisses him. I get it's, like, kind of a shrouded kiss, but he kisses him. So I hate to put them down here, but it's just, like, flat out not queer baiting. I guess I'll put them, like, up here because it's, like, oh, like, I get that you, similar to Reddy, you want, like, more. But they're together. So I just think objectively it's not queer baiting because they're together. Also, I've heard tell that maybe we're getting a season 2. So I don't have high hopes, but we'll see. That is my list. It is on cheermaker.com. I will put the link down below if you want to do it. Take a screenshot, put it in the comments. This was a mess of a video. It was casual. I hope you enjoyed. Lord knows it's probably like an hour and a half at this point. But again, please feel free. These are just my opinions. Feel free to share your opinions down below if you think a position might be different. There's certainly ones that I think might, you know, be a little contentious. But I hope you have a lovely Pride Month. Like I said, this is a little bit of a downer of a video in some ways, so I will be doing one where I rank canonical couples, and I assure you there will be more lesbians. Bye!